Want a free PlayStation? Yes, free. Who would have thought in November 2020, when Sony released that PlayStation 5, that we'd be sitting here almost 20 months later with no consoles on shelves and very few available with online retailers? Well, we got our hands on a disc console, but instead of teaching President Teddy how to play NBA 2K, we'd like to send it to a loyal WagerTalk supporter. You can start earning entries now and repeat daily just by going to wt.buzz/PS5 and perform the social media task below to earn entries into our raffle. The contest will end at midnight on July 3rd, and a random winner will be announced on July 4th. Help us reach 100,000 subscribers on YouTube and grow our social media footprint, and you could be the new owner of a PS5.
Hey guys, Andrew McInnis here, WagerTalk.com. Looking forward to breaking down the Stanley Cup Final, the Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Of course, I'm here with my co-host Carmine, Bianco. Lots of great things to go over. We're going to talk some props, some series, correct scores, all that good stuff, and of course, what brought these teams here to where they are in the Stanley Cup Finals. Carmine has gathered some great stats for everybody to look over, postseason, regular season. All kinds of good stuff to help you guys make your decision on who you think will be the Stanley Cup champion for 2022. Of course, Tampa Bay looking for their third straight championship here. Colorado, a team that was the favorite all year long, trying to get the job done and take down the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have been so skilled for so many years. Carmine, I'll bring you in. It's been such a fun time doing puck time all year long. And here we are, man. Stanley Cup Finals. One more series to go.
Yeah, man. I'm super excited. Here we are. The arguably the best team during the regular season, Colorado Avalanche, and obviously favorites to win the Cup. And then the two-time defending champions, Tampa Bay. Some people during the regular season didn't give another chance to get here. And, I have to say, there's always the narratives, Andrew, during the last 30 days of the regular season. We talked about on the show how Tampa sort of shuts it down. And there's people out there on social media talking about the fact that, Tampa's not deep. They're not as good. And here they are. They're in the finals. Never doubt this team. They might have lost some pieces during the regular season from their third and fourth lines. They replaced them. They retooled, and they're back here again with a very good coach and a very good squad, and of course a very good goalie. So this is going to be a good series. The price, if you watched Wager Talk today, Art DeCesar was on, and he talked about the opening number and how it's come down a bit as far as like the series price. Colorado, I think, opened at 180. They're down to 160. That was such a high price on Tampa Bay getting plus 160. I think they're down to about plus 140 now. But this is going to be such a great series. I hope it's not a bust. You know what I mean? Like we've seen Colorado roll two teams in the playoffs this year in sweeps, Andrew, with the exception of the St. Louis Blues prior to Binnington getting injured. And I don't think Tampa is a team that's going to get rolled in in the Stanley Cup Finals. It's going to be a good series. I would love nothing better than this to go the distance in 7 games.
Well, I have to give you lots of credit, Carm, because you talked about it during the regular season about how Tampa Bay, they didn't have to be at their best for a full 82 games. It was about getting to the playoffs, getting there, doing it the right way. And we kind of saw that. I mean, they didn't really come into the playoffs this year as, the biggest team everyone was talking about. We know they're the back-to-back Cup champions, but even that note they came into the playoffs on, I don't think it was a winning note. It was actually kind of on a losing note. And it just goes to show it's not really about how you come in, it's about how you finish. And that's kind of what's changed for them. We look back to the year they won the President's Trophy. Of course, we've touched on it on the show numerous times, but that's the year they got swept against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So it's just so interesting to see how, when it comes down to the playoffs, what can happen and how so many things can change here. Karn, before we jump into a couple more topics, and we're going to jump into how these teams got here, I do want to ask you about this this round in particular, as far as your packages go, as far as your plays go, what you have planned for clients. I know you've been doing some props, goal scorers, and I believe you have a package up already for this series.
Yeah. Well, obviously, right off the bat, I have a 5% series play up that you can get over at WagerTalk. I also, that's a 5% play. I also have a package for game one, which is going to be one of those play plus props package that I've been doing during the Eastern Conference Finals. So there'll be 2 or 3 props included. There'll be game day props because a lot of them, you see a little bit of volatility in the numbers. I always kind of like to wait till game day for those numbers to settle. I hate to give out a bad number to anyone, so I wait till game day to put those up. But you can get those over, and then we got that great deal, Andrew, right now, which is basically get the rest of the Stanley Cup or get the Stanley Cup Finals, $59. It's on both our pages in the NHL drop-down menu, and that's literally the price of 2 daily packages, which is a really good deal. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a profitable NHL playoffs for me. It's been a profitable 2022 for me in NHL, and that's and a profitable overall year. Not as good as yours, I will say that, because I'm telling you that first month of October, and this is where we always talk about being completely transparent. The first month of the NHL season, I literally got my ass kicked. And it's something I wasn't happy about. It's something I took care of my clients at the time, and we recovered from like the November 13 onwards, which was the 1 month period of the NHL season. Very profitable in NHL, but the playoffs have been good. I'm really looking forward to it. These are just 2 good teams, and it's the teams you'd want to see there at the end of the day. And Andrew, to your point, really quickly about in Tampa Bay the last 2 years, and then this year as well too, the last sort of 30 days or so, they kind of shut it down. Excuse me. They've got a lot of character guys on this team. They're a veteran squad. They can do that. Not every team can do that. Not every team can make the playoffs or shut it down. And then you have teams like Florida who they played lights out hockey all season long, but they just never switched it into playoff mode, and they were even lucky to get by Washington, truth be told, right? So not every team can do that and win on sheer talent. Sometimes you have to switch your team to playoff mode, and that's where coaching comes in as well too. And we're going to discuss coaching today.
Absolutely. Before we jump into coaching, let's just talk about how each of these teams got here. Let's start with Colorado, taking a look at their path, kind of what they had to do to get here to the Stanley Cup Finals. And Carm, it might not be as easy as it looks, is what I'll start off with, but they started off their playoffs with a 7-2 victory over the Nashville Predators. Also in that series had a 7-3 victory. They go on to sweep the Nashville Predators. Then they have a relatively competitive series against the Blues. We saw a goaltender injury, which kind of changed the series. Colorado wins it against the Blues 4-2. And of course, the most recent one in the Western Conference Finals, we had them taking on the Edmonton Oilers, which was also a sweep. So 2 sweeps for the Colorado Avalanche here in the Stanley Cup playoffs so far. And that sweep against the Oilers was probably as hard fought of a sweep as you'll see. I mean, that last game, that game 4, was one of those ones where it just didn't look like really you'd think that a team would, be sweeping in that type of contest. But it goes to show the level that they took and able to come back countless times, winning a game 6-5 in overtime to send their team to the Stanley Cup Finals, which was pretty incredible in my eyes. And then taking a look at Tampa Bay, of course, Carm, starting things off with a little bit of a scare. I mean, they got blown out in game 1 of the playoffs against the Maple Leafs. That series goes to 7. None other than Nick Paul scores his first 2 ever career playoff goals into that game 7. It was the story of all the secondary guys in that one. They take it in game 7 against the Maple Leafs. You take a look at the next one against the Florida Panthers. That one surprised so many people. The Battle of the Sunshine State. And they proved that they can win low-scoring series and high-scoring series. They shut down the offense of the Florida Panthers, and they get it done in sweep fashion over the Florida Panthers. And, of course, the series that just wrapped up in the East, the New York Rangers and the Tampa Bay Lightning, a series where we saw New York take the first 2 games at home, and then after that, Tampa Bay never looked back. They won 4 straight games after protecting home ice, winning the next 2. So here we are, Stanley Cup Finals, a little bit of a different path here for both of these teams. But one thing I will mention is that I think it's interesting that both these clubs, Carm, have played a little bit of everything as far as stylistic type of hockey. The St. Louis Blues, what they bring to the table for Colorado, Nashville, and then look at the Edmonton Oilers, a high-paced team that will get you in an absolute shootout. And same goes for Tampa Bay, really, playing a team like Toronto in round 1, where some of those games, reached as high as 8, 9, 10 goals, and the game 7 only had a handful of goals. And then you look at the previous series we just had in the East with New York and Tampa Bay, a low-scoring one, a goaltender battle at its best with Vasilevsky and Shesterkin. It goes to show that both these teams have really proven they can win games in low-scoring and high-scoring fashion. I look forward to seeing kind of what the game script is like here in the Stanley Cup, whether we see some high-scoring games or whether we continue to see goaltender battles. But a great path for both these teams, albeit some sweeps in there, Carm. I feel like they really had to work their way here, and it was definitely a group effort from their teams, not just 1 or 2 guys getting the job done.
Yeah, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I've always thought, during the regular season and even entering the playoffs, the Eastern Conference was the much tougher conference this year. All 8 teams that made the playoffs finished with 100 points or more. The West, it was down, and this is not a hit on Colorado. They've been great all season long, so this is not a hit on them. But you look at their path to the playoffs or path to the finals, and I think it's a much easier one. You look at just on talking about like goalies faced, and because we talk about that as well too. Round 1, Riddick, and then once Riddick gets pulled, it's Connor Ingram. Next round, it's Jordan Binnington. He gets injured, and it's Husso, who had an abysmal start to the playoffs and was replaced by Binnington, and Binnington played well until that injury. I'm not saying that if Binnington didn't get injured, the result of that series would have been any different, but it would have been a lot more interesting because Binnington was standing on his head. And you see what a goalie can do when he stands on his head. You just look at that Calgary and Dallas series with Ottinger. And then you look at and then they get Mike Smith, who he just didn't have it. So the guy's 40 years old, and he just couldn't get it done. You look at Tampa, they faced Campbell in the first round. Whatever your thoughts are on Campbell, good regular season, maybe not a great playoffs. From there, Bobrovsky, and then the Vezina Trophy winner, Shesterkin. So much different route as far as goalies go. And then you look at defenses that you faced. These are regular season rankings. They faced Nashville, 17th best defense as far as goals against average this season during the regular season. Then they face, in the second round, St. Louis, the 11th best. And then they finish it off with facing the 18th best defense in the Edmonton Oilers. You look at Tampa Bay, and it was number 19 in the opening round, number in the Leafs, number 12, and then number 2 defense in the conference finals in the Rangers. So obviously the paths seem they look the same, but they really aren't. This is why we'll see right now. Listen, as I said, no disrespect to Colorado and their fans, but they're facing a team that has proven veterans. They're Stanley Cup champions twice the last 2 seasons. Very good defense, very well coached team, and of course Vasilevsky in goal. So we'll see what happens now. It's always that narrative. People talked about the Rangers in the last round and how lucky they were to get there because they never faced a number 1 goalie. And you can say what you want. The Rangers were a very good team in the playoffs. I like the way they played. You can only beat who they put in front of you, Andrew. At the end of the day, you can only beat who they put in front of you. this series will come down to, well, it's not going to come down to it, but this series more than any, I think we're going to see how the coaches adjust. Jared Bednar has not had to make the adjustments thus far in the playoffs because they've had an easy run of it. Cooper hasn't had an easy run of it, but he's made some pretty good adjustments along the way in each one of, or on the first and the third series. The second one against Florida, I don't think he had to make any adjustments in that one.
That's a great point. I mean, can we really say that Colorado has faced any adversity? Maybe a little bit at some point, maybe against St. Louis. That was obviously the only real adversity we can talk about for them, but it's a really good point you make, and I haven't thought about it that much at all. But it really, I mean, talk about the paths to get here. It really, they still had to earn it and work for it, Carm. But like you mentioned, it was a complete different path there for Colorado. When it comes down to it, though, we can both agree neither of these teams have faced a team with the caliber of their opponent now. This is the toughest team that both teams will play so far in the playoffs. And I think, just like you mentioned, coaching changes, having the last change, we'll see how that makes a difference and an impact. But it's a great point. You talk about John Cooper, what he's done. And I didn't even know this, honestly, until a few weeks ago. He has a very interesting coaching story. He was a public defender. Then he started off coaching like high school teams, worked his way up, and now on his way potentially to winning his third straight Stanley Cup. Obviously, Bednar's been a great coach as well, still looking to prove himself. And this team that they've built with Colorado could be a start of something big for that team. Carm, you have some great stats and info here for us and our viewers on both these teams to go over. And I think it's nice to look at some of these numbers and we've talked about how these teams have gotten here and who they've played. And you kind of mentioned you thought the East was a tougher conference this year. Well, let's pull up these numbers and kind of take a look at what we think of these two teams and how they stack up.
Yeah, I think we have to look at first and foremost, how these teams have done on specialty teams. Like, we're going to break down specialty teams, power plays, penalty killing, 5v5 numbers. And if you look at, as far as power plays go, thus far in the playoffs, Colorado, and this is the importance of 5v5. You cannot put them on the power play. Right now, they are firing on all cylinders, 31.1% in the playoffs, which is the number 2 percentage-wise in the playoffs. And during the regular season, they were at 24%. So obviously a marked improvement. You put them on the power play, they're going to make you pay for it. And you look at a team like Tampa Bay, they're number 8 as far as the 16 teams that qualified for this year's playoffs at 22.6%, which is a slight tick downwards from what they were during the regular season at 23.9. It just harps on the importance, Andrew, of the 5v5. If you're going to listen, again, it's no disrespect to Colorado when we talk about their path getting here, but you cannot put this team on the power play. They are it's not even just their first line power play. It's their second line power play is probably better than a lot of teams' first line power play units when they're on that ice. 31.1, you don't want to fall in a hole against a Colorado Avalanche team and have to play catch up. We saw Tampa have to do it in the previous round against the New York Rangers, falling behind. This is not a team you want to fall behind, I think, during the regular season. Like, any thoughts on as far as these power play numbers go?
Well, it's unbelievable, and I saw one thing cool about what we've seen from Tampa Bay is that even though they're not like top 5 in goals against, goals for, they're kind of top 10 in both those categories, which to me, it goes to show that, for some teams in the league, you see them being top in the league for power play percentage, and that same team might be bottom 10 in the league as far as the PK. So looking at that, 8th ranking for them, I still think their PK isn't too bad either. They're a very aggressive PK, but for Colorado to take that power play percentage from the regular season, Carm, and take it to another level in the playoffs is something really special. So Special teams will be really crucial in this series. I've made a statement on Twitter. I've been talking on Twitter saying I don't like when big games are decided by power plays. And I've had friends of mine and people say, dude, that's how it's part of the game. It's nothing to be complaining about. I like to see 5-on-5 hockey, Carm, but we know what both these two teams are capable of with Kucherov, McInnis, with snipers across the board. You're going to make a mistake if you're putting these guys on the power play too many times.
Yeah, and we're going to get to 5-on-5 in a second, but when you look at that number 2 power play for Colorado, let's look at the penalty killing, and this is one of the aspects of why Tampa are where they are right now. As good as their power play was last season during their second Stanley Cup run in winning, and we cashed a lot of plus money bets on their on player points during power plays. You look at their penalty kill, and they're 82.5%, number 5 in the playoffs this season. And they face some very good units. The Leafs have a very good power play. The Florida Panthers, during the regular season, had a good power play. Not so much in the playoffs. I think they only had one power play goal, 1 or 2 power play goals through the 2 rounds of the playoffs. That there are 10 games that they played before they were shown the exit door. But a tick up from where they were during the regular season at 80.6. 10 power play goals they've allowed as far as the games that they played thus far at Tampa Bay. And then you look at Colorado, they've allowed 9 power play goals in the playoffs this season. So that shows you, even at 75.7%, they haven't taken a lot of penalties, but they've allowed goals along the way. And it's a slight downtick. So they're number 10. If you look at overall, yes, the Colorado power play is a lot better, but if we go to specialty teams, I think there's a slight advantage, a very slight advantage, Andrew, to Tampa Bay here. They can kill the penalties, and if Colorado's got to put their unit on the ice shorthanded against Tampa Bay, this team again, it's a veteran team that is scoring goals. It's a slight. It's almost a trade-off, but I'm going to give the slight advantage here to Tampa Bay. Would you agree or disagree? And I'm perfectly fine with you pulling the Don Buster and disagreeing with me on this one.
No, it's Tuesday, but we won't be doing any disagreeing on this one. I'm with you, and I think it goes to show that, like I should have waited to say this, Carm, and that's my bad, until after you showed the PK numbers. But with Tampa Bay not having the top 3 or top 5 power play, it doesn't mean that they're not great on the specialty teams, because they have a great PK as well. I would rather a team be well balanced with the power play and PK than have a team that's just so strong on the power play but a little weaker on the PK. One thing interesting about Tampa Bay, like I mentioned, they're so aggressive. I think for Colorado, a huge key for them will be to get shots off quickly into the power plays, move the puck around and fire the puck on net. Why do I say that? Because if you handle the puck for too long, you're going to have those defenders jumping out to the point and poke checking you and getting the puck over the blue line. It's a very aggressive penalty kill that does not want you holding onto the puck for too long. From Tampa Bay, they do a great job of closing off those lanes. So it'll be interesting to see how Colorado handles that. But one thing about this, as far as specialty teams go, Carm, I think that discipline is a huge factor, of course. And we've seen it from both teams, them kind of losing their cool, trying to get under the skin of their opponent, whether it's the goaltender, whether it's some after the whistle stuff or some rough hits. We've seen it from both teams. So it should be interesting to see here. Obviously, it's the Stanley Cup Final. But with Colorado, even against Edmonton, we saw them take bad penalties late in the game. We saw Tampa Bay even do it against New York. We saw them do it against the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll see what can happen when the game starts to get rough, when the game starts to get physical, or when one team's down 1 or 2 goals, how each team, holds their composure and stays together, because obviously the experience level here is on the Tampa Bay Lightning side. That's for sure. The experience level is there with them. We'll see which team can stay out of the box and keep their cool. Carm, anything else to add with these 5-on-5 numbers?
No, and that's the thing is, and I just want to throw up like one more stat for you. And we just talk about sometimes underperforming or overperforming to the numbers, and I think the 5v5 numbers kind of show that. If we can get that image up on the screen, you look at Colorado, and 5v5 they scored 45 goals, allowed 29. Their expected goals scored during the playoffs were 34.25 and 25.92. So obviously their expected goal difference is 8.62, while their actual goal differential is 16. So they've actually overperformed their XG numbers. And then you can look back at, we're talking about the goalies again: Riddick, Ingram, Binnington, Husso, Smith, and maybe that's why they've overperformed on their XG numbers, because those goalies are letting in some softies. And you look at Tampa Bay, 28 and 24 goals for and against, and then their XG numbers are 37.89 to 31.76, a difference of 613. They've underperformed to what their XG numbers are. And again, we look at, it's possibly the goalies, Andrew, again, facing a guy like Shesterkin, who stops goals that look like they're going to go in. And he did a lot of that in that last round. Unfortunately, it just wasn't enough because his team just couldn't get anything by Vasilevsky in those last couple of games. And even tight ones against Florida and Bobrovsky. So with that said, sometimes, Andrew, a guy like Brian will talk about it. Sometimes those arcs start to even out and they start to cross over, and you start to wonder if the Tampa Bay Lightning upward trend as opposed to Colorado downward trend, and maybe with a goalie like Vasilevsky in net, we see a little bit of regression from Colorado. And it sounds like I'm trying to convince you guys that Tampa is the play. I'm not. I'm just putting the numbers out here, and you guys can use that and come up with your own logic on whether you want to use those numbers or whether you don't want to use those numbers. But obviously, 5-on-5 and XG numbers are an important, analytics are an important part of the game.
Wait, Carm, so Mike Smith isn't starting for Tampa Bay?
No,
we have
he's
Vasilevsky here. Okay.
he's unavailable for game one.
Yeah, game time decision? No, I don't think so. So, yeah, things are definitely a bit different in this game here. Things are going to change. The XG numbers are going to change. And, of course, Tampa Bay coming off a series against Shesterkin, Vezina nominee. Just an unbelievable goaltender, a guy that has done so well all year long. We'll see if that frustration of so many goals that should have counted will carry into actual goals for Tampa Bay in this series. But Colorado putting up big numbers consistently all throughout this series. Guys, we have some keys to the series. We have some Carmine's keys, Andrew's keys to the series for each team. Carm, will go to you. You can blast through your keys for Tampa Bay. Then I'll run with mine with Tampa Bay, then Colorado, and I'll go with Colorado, and then we'll wrap things up with any future talk and put a bow on this show. Over to you, Carm, for your keys to the series for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, my favorite keys are Alicia keys. But with that said, Andrew, I'm going to make it quick on Tampa Bay so we can breeze through these. It is going to be obviously discipline with this team, line matching with this team, and trying to keep this game as a 5-on-5 game. I think even with Colorado speed, that Tampa can manage it in this game, and they've got a goalie behind them that gives them confidence to do so. Cooper's very good at line matching. Those first couple of games that we talked about against the Rangers, where the Rangers literally they were all over. That number one line was Zibanejad and Kreider were all over Tampa Bay. The minute Cooper made some line changes and rejuggled it, and Cirelli completely shut down the Zibanejad line 4 straight games. He made the right moves there, and this is where the coaching comes in. Keep this game 5v5, and I think as I mentioned, those arcing numbers may actually go in Tampa's favor. So 5v5. Let's keep this Colorado team off the power play, because they will just they'll rip your hearts out.
I got to give credit to our graphics team here, Carm. These are some great graphics today. Sweet graphics. Great job by them, and great job from you for getting all these great stats and information there. For me, I'll start with my keys for Tampa Bay. Look, I think that number one, they have to use the experience to their advantage. I mean, this is a team that's been there before. There's all kinds of guys that have the experience of not just in the playoffs and the postseason, but also Stanley Cup experience, which is huge for a team. Number two, we just talked about it. I had to make a little joke about how this will be a little bit different of a goalie that Colorado is facing now versus what they've seen in a past series before here. If Vasilevsky can see it, he can save it. If Tampa Bay does a good job of keeping the Colorado Avalanche to the outside, don't screen him, keep the bodies out of the crease, Vasilevsky will be a huge part of this series for Tampa Bay. And number three, for me, a huge key for the Tampa Bay Lightning, keep four lines rolling for them and be physical. Every player might not be a goal scorer for them, but every player on that team does their job. The old Bill Belichick mentality, do your job. And guys like Patrick Maroon that might not always score goals, but they go out there, they be physical, to get pucks behind the net, and they do their job in their own way. And I feel like that's huge for the Tampa Bay Lightning to not just rely on one or two lines to make something happen, to have four lines creating some offense. Carm, over to you with your thoughts with Colorado.
Listen, as far as the coaching goes, we'll see as the series goes whether Jared Bednar has to make any adjustments and how he does it, because he hasn't had to do it thus far in the playoffs. This team has just so much talent, Andrew. Even as I mentioned, 5-on-5, so much team speed. Whenever Makar's out there, you literally have four forwards on the ice. They have a lot of team speed, so it's gonna it's up to or we're going to see. Sorry, I'm jumping around here a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see how Tampa deals with that speed defensively, because McKinnon, Makar, those guys out there. Even if you keep them to the outside, these guys are so fast that they're going to beat you to the outside. It's just a matter of seeing how they adapt or how they set up, and they're going to have a game plan. We just don't know whether that game plan is going to work. But keep this team off the power play or they're going to burn you. Play them 5v5. It's like you said, we don't want to see any game decided by penalties, but ultimately this is what happens. It's the NHL. It is sport, and penalties do happen. Keep this team 31.1% power play. Keep them off the ice, that power play unit. Play them 5v5 and let the better team win. But we'll see. If Tampa can take one of two games, if they take the first game in this series, we'll see what adjustments Bednar does to the team, or whether he just goes out there and it's the exact same unit out there for game two.
Adjustments will be huge, and specialty teams will be huge. So although we have Colorado with the better power play, I've made my first point for Colorado. Stay out of the box. Play 5-on-5 hockey. Don't let Stamkos and Kucherov get rolling on the power play. So I really think that that's huge for both teams, but I had that written down for Colorado to stay out of the box. Number two for me here, it seems kind of simple, Carm, but you got to get McKinnon rolling early, get Mikko Rantanen rolling early, let your best players be your best players. As much as I'm always a guy to talk about depth and how important that is, I think in this series in particular, it's just as important that we see Colorado start off and get the big boys going right away in this series with McKinnon and Rantanen having a good series. And number three, use your speed. This team is so fast. When you watch their games, you look like it's a video game out there. The way they move the puck around, the way they get the puck behind the D. And I feel like that'll be a big difference for them if they can get their feet going early, use their speed, and get behind the defense. And we'll see how the physicality of Tampa Bay can respond against that in this series. But staying out of the box, getting the Stars going early, and using their speed, I think three keys this series for the Avalanche. Wrapping up this show, Carm, just looking at some futures and different things like that. I see for the series to go 6 games or 7 games at plus 210, 4 games, which is crazy, 550. 5 games is plus 260 here. Series spread right now, looking at Tampa Bay plus 1.5 games is minus 130. Minus 1.5 games for Colorado is plus 110. Anything stick out to you? Also, although we also have the Conn Smythe plus 180 for Cale Makar, plus 210 McKinnon, plus 400 Kucherov, and plus 400 Vasilevsky.
Yeah, as far as futures go, I had a preseason future for my clients and myself on Colorado plus 550, so that's obviously still alive. Um, I have the future that I took during the playoffs, where I mentioned the fact that I was going to take Vasilevsky to win the Conn Smythe. He was plus 650, and I did. I released it to my clients as well too. You look at the updated prices, as you mentioned. My book has Makar plus 200, McKinnon 220, Kucherov plus 375, and Vasilevsky plus 400. Colorado wins the Cup. I'm cashing that plus 550. Obviously, going to lose the Vasilevsky Conn Smythe one because that's going to go to Makar or McKinnon. If Tampa Bay wins, with the exception of, say, Kucherov completely going off on this series, if they win, it's likely going to be Vasilevsky that gets the Conn Smythe, unless, of course, it goes 7 games and Makar and McKinnon have phenomenal Stanley Cup playoffs. It's likely going to go to the goalie of the winning team, again, unless Kucherov goes off on this series. So I'm happy with sitting on plus 650 now, considering it's at plus 400 right now. Those are the only futures right now for me. And like I said, I have a bunch of other futures that are up for clients, and those are still available for sale. So we're not really going to get into that one here on the show.
Sounds great, Carm. For me, I'll just say I think that the fact that Makar is now the favorite, I think McKinnon at the plus 210, this is that DraftKings Sportsbook. I think it's a great price there with him. He's a goal scoring machine for them, but also a great two-way player, a guy that can do some damage on the power play. And I don't think that Makar will be able to just walk through teams, or at least Tampa Bay, like he was able to do against, teams like the Oilers and teams like Nashville. So this will be a little bit different, I think, for him. He's still such a great, generational player, but I think it won't be as much of a standout series for him as it will be for a forward like Nathan McKinnon. We're back tomorrow here on Puck Time, breaking down Game 1. That was your series preview from Carmine and I. Some keys, some stats, some information for you guys to help you make your decisions. All of our information, all of our best bets can be found at WagerTalk.com. Carmine and I do multiple sports, not just hockey. You can find all of our picks over at WagerTalk. Thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Want a free PlayStation? Yes, free. Who would have thought in November 2020, when Sony released that PlayStation 5, that we'd be sitting here almost 20 months later with no consoles on shelves and very few available with online retailers? Well, we got our hands on a disc console, but instead of teaching President Teddy how to play NBA 2K, we'd like to send it to a loyal WagerTalk supporter. You can start earning entries now and repeat daily just by going to wt.buzz/PS5 and perform the social media task below to earn entries into our raffle. The contest will end at midnight on July 3rd, and a random winner will be announced on July 4th. Help us reach 100,000 subscribers on YouTube and grow our social media footprint, and you could be the new owner of a PS5.